Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Shay. I make videos about horror games, horror movies, horror TV shows, and theme parks because I live in Central Florida and I feel like it would be a crime not to. And if you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. It has been a minute, well, not for you guys, it's been a minute for me because I had a video preloaded last week for you guys to watch, but I haven't recorded in a week, so I was a little slow going today, but we're doing it. We have another double upload for the, double review for The Last of Us. And just so you know, next Sunday is the last episode of the season 2, and what a ride season 2 has been. So after next week, we will not have 2 uploads every week. Actually, this week we won't have 2 uploads. Well, we might. Actually, we will. I'm sorry, I lied. We will have 2 uploads this week. I completely forgot that I am going to see Final Destination Bloodlines tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Okay. But today we are here to talk about The Last of Us, and soon we will review the entire series, the entire season for what it is. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into this review. We're going to start with episode 5. So episode 5 starts off where episode 4 left off, but before we actually get into that, we do have a little intro with the wolves. We see the main head wolf, I think her name is Isabel. I'm not sure. I'm really bad with names apparently. We see her going in to interview somebody about why she abandoned her soldiers. And they start talking about the hospital. They were actually looking through the hospital to try to see if they could clear it, find any infected, and they decided everything was clear except for the basement levels. So they got to the first basement level, everything was fine. They sent another team down to the second basement level, and when they got down to the second basement level, one of the people radioed in. I know his name is Leon because I remember that because I thought of Leon Kennedy. One of them radioed in and said that there are spores in the air, and they were choking to death and basically dying. So now we have a new kind of threat again. We've got more new threats, which I think was really interesting because I did mention it in my last video, but I took it out because when I saw the preview, I assumed it was the spores, but then people were saying it wasn't, so I was like, I'm gonna take it out so I don't look stupid. But I was right, it was the spores. So you guys were the ones that were wrong. Not you guys, but people who were saying that it's not the spores, because that was actually a big point of contention with the first season. Some people were really annoyed that they didn't include the spores, so they didn't walk around with the gas masks on, which I think they just mainly did that so that the actors didn't have to walk around with that all the time on their face, because it would have just ruined the shots basically. But they are including them now. The hospital it's infected basically. So after that, we cut back to Ellie and Dina, and they are trying to figure out a way through to get to the hospital, to get to Nora, to find out where the heck Abby is, because that's what this is all about. So Dina charts this whole plan, and one of the things she mentions is that there is a building that the wolves don't patrol. Well, Ellie's like, why wouldn't the wolves patrol that? And she's like, probably because there's infected in there, but maybe there's not a lot, maybe there's only a few. So they decide they're gonna go ahead and go into the the building. They, at first when they go out, they find a bunch of bodies that have been they've been shot basically, not shot but arrowed, because it's from the Seraphites or the scars. They call them scars in the show, but they're Seraphites in the game. I don't know why I'm going off track here, but yeah, they're the Seraphites shot them in with the arrows in the head, and then they wrote feel her power for their goddess that they worship. And then at that point, Ellie kind of realizes, okay, Dina's pregnant, there's a lot of stuff that's gonna be going on, we gotta get you out of here. So she tells Dina, she says, look, you can go back and I'll go, you can go back. And Dina's like, do you want me to go back? And then, because I can go with you, or we can go, I can go back. And Ellie's like, it's your choice. And she's like, okay, I'm going with you. So obviously Dina wasn't going to leave her girl high and dry, because even though in the game she goes back, it would have been really boring just watching Ellie walk around by herself with no one to interact with. So they end up getting to that building. It was a warehouse, and they go through. In the first room, they don't notice anything, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, there's nothing going on here. They go into the next room. They're like, okay, we can maneuver through this room. We stay crouched really low. We make sure that the wolves don't see us. And then all of a sudden they see a body on the ground that's been like mutilated. And they're like, what the heck is that? Then they hear this like screechy, throaty sound. And they look around and with their flashlight, and there's a stalker. Now, if you remember in the first episode, Ellie had an encounter with a stalker when she was out, doing patrols with Dina. So she, like I said, she sees the stalker. That's like the one that I fought. So, these ones are really, really smart. She starts telling them how they kind of strategize. They do all this, like, hunting really, and like they'll come up and they'll flank you. And she's like, but there's only one of them and there's two of us. So one of us can get the attention of the stalker and the other one can come up from behind it and stab it. Then they start hearing more noises and more throaty, gurgly sounds. They start shining that flashlight around and the room is filled with stalkers. So Ellie looks at Dina and she says, hey, there's this little fenced in area. Run over there, please. Go over there. Lock yourself in. And I'll try to take out as many of them as I possibly can. So Dina's like, all right, So she runs, she locks herself in. And of course the stalkers are like jumping on the cage, trying to get in there. She's firing at them. And Ellie is trying to take out as many as she can. Obviously, she can't get infected. So she's just blowing through them as best as she can. But then she does get sort of overpowered. And just when it starts to look really bleak, like she's got a stalker on top of her, which, I mean, again, she can't get infected. So, like, I mean, they would just have to kill her, really. But while she has a stalker on top of her, Dina is still in that cage, and the stalkers are now pulling the metal off the cage to get into her. And then somebody blasts the stalkers, and it turns out that it is Jesse. So they followed them. Jesse and Tommy are actually, out. They followed them right after they realized that they were gone. But we don't see Tommy in this episode. He's looking elsewhere. So Jesse was like, yeah, we were at the theater. We followed your footsteps, and, here you are. You're lucky that I showed up. So then, as they're running out of the building, the wolves show up and the wolves start firing at them. So they run, they hide, and they start walking through the woods, and then they hear whistling. They duck down, they hide, and there's Seraphites coming in. And they've got a wolf, he's like tied up, and he's begging them. He's like, please just let me go. Like, I'm not going to do anything. I won't hurt you. So the Seraphites are like, no, basically. They start doing their little chant, and then they disembowel him. And we remember in the last episode, they found all those wolves disemboweled Ellie and Dina. They got to see that firsthand. So then they hear more whistling because behind them, and they realize that they've been spotted, and Dina gets shot in the knee. She takes an arrow to the knee, like Skyrim. Yeah, she takes an arrow to the knee, and they cart her off. Ellie tells Jesse to take her back to the theater. She's like, please take her back to the theater. We just need her to be, like, we need her to be safe because she's pregnant. Jesse doesn't know this yet. I don't know if he ever will, but we'll find out. So then Ellie decides she's going to keep going because they're like, you need to come back. And she's like, no, I got to find Abby. So she evades the Seraphites, and she actually makes it into the hospital. When she makes it into the hospital, Nora's there. She's treating one of the people, and Ellie comes over and she starts, threatening her. She's like, where's Abby? You need to tell me where Abby is. And Nora's like, I'm so sorry that he had to die, talking about Joel. I'm so sorry he had to die. She's like, I hear his screams every night when I close my eyes. And then she says, he deserved it. I'm like, oh, okay. So then her and Ellie start chasing each other. She starts chasing Nora, and they're running, and Nora eventually gets to an elevator shaft, and she jumps on top of the elevator, and the elevator plummets downwards. So Ellie's like, man, I can scale this. This is no big deal. I scale things all the time. Well, as Nora gets down to the bottom, you look up and she realizes that she's on level B2, the level that the soldier in the beginning had told the team to seal off, where the spores are. The walls are covered in cordyceps. So she's like, there, but I don't think she knew that it was that one because I don't think she would have gone in there if she had known. But she does go in to that hallway, and, Ellie follows her down the elevator shaft, and she walks in, and Ellie turns the corner, and there is cordyceps all over the wall, just like the team had said. There are also bodies that are just breathing out the spores. They're like kind of taped to the like wall. Not taped. They're like fused to the wall, and they're just like breathing out the spores. Again, Ellie can't get infected, so she's like, okay. So Ellie goes into Ellie starts following, coughing because Nora is just hacking her lungs out because she's dying. So Ellie goes back there, and she's like, Ellie goes back there, and she's like, where's Abby? And Nora's like, you're an idiot, you damned us both, like you killed us both, like we're both gonna die now. And Ellie's like, oh really? And she's just standing there like nothing bothered her. And Nora's like, oh, you're the girl. Mm-hmm. And then she tells her, she's like, Joel killed a hospital full of people, and to save you, the surgeon who was going to make the cure was Abby's father. And Ellie goes, I know. Which is the first time in the show that we are acknowledging that Ellie does know what Joel did to save her life. So then, so then Nora, starts to really choke, and she's, collapsed on the floor, and Ellie just picks up this, I don't know, it looked like a metal rod, and she just starts beating Nora with it, screaming, like, where's Abby? Where's Abby? Tell me where she is. And just, Nora's not giving up the information. She's just not doing it. So she's beaten her, and then the episode cuts, and that's where episode 5 ends. So really intense, and unfortunately we're left on a cliffhanger with that episode a little bit. I'm assuming episode 7 is going to be where we're going to get the resolution to that specific scenario, but the episode 6 is actually a flashback episode. Now, if you've seen season 1 of this show, you know how revered the episode 3 was. I think it's called the long way home or something. That was a very highly regarded episode about the love between two men that culminated in both of them passing away when they realize there's nothing else that they can do. And it's beautiful episode. I think this episode gives it a run for its money, and I think the reason why I'd say would give it a run for its money is because of the fact that we've had so much time with Joel and Ellie, and also we know what happens to Joel, because this is all flashbacks, this is all previous. So knowing what happened to Joel and seeing him and Ellie and their relationship, and everything that happened up until the point that he died, was very, very heart-wrenching. And also we'll get into it. So the episode starts with Joel bringing something to Seth for to trade. He's bringing toys to Seth so he can trade and get a cake for Ellie's 15th birthday, because remember, in the first season she was 14, now she's 15. So he gets her a cake, and then he gets home, and he also asks Seth for something else. So he gets back to the house, he looks for Ellie, can't find Ellie, and he starts he takes a guitar out, and he starts refurbishing this guitar, and he does a really great job. I mean, he varnishes it, he puts a little bone on the end, and he draws a moth in there. It ended up being so pretty, it ended up being so nice. So it ended up being so pretty. It ended up being really nice. So then, as he's finishing up, and he's waiting for her to come home, Tommy brings her in, and he says that hey, something happened, and she's clearly under the influence. And what happened was that she burned herself on a pot in the kitchen so that she could wear short sleeves again, because she has a bite mark on her arm from when she was bitten, and she wanted to be able to hide that, so she burned her arm so she could wear short sleeves. And so Joel's like, okay, let's get you some rest. So she falls asleep, and then she wakes up, she goes downstairs, and there's Joel standing there looking down at something, and he's upset. And then she's like, what? And he's like, oh, well, I got you, a cake. And she walks over, and she's like, she reads the cake, and it says, happy birthday, Eli. So Seth just botched her name. So like that's cute. So then he's like, well, let's hope that Seth can, he goes to get a knife. He's like, well, let's hope that Seth can bake better than he can spell. And then he turns around and Ellie's just been digging into this cake. Like she just has cake all in her hands and all over her face. And she's like, yeah, he's a good bake. Like, yeah, he's good. And like Joel's just like, he's like, oh, Ellie. So then he says he has a surprise for her, tells her to close her eyes, and then he brings out the guitar. And he says, I told you I'd teach you how to play one day. And she's like, yeah, no. She asks him to play her something. And he's like, no, I don't really want to play and sing. And she's like, no, please, for me, it's my birthday. So he starts playing a song by Pearl Jam, and he sings, and it's really beautiful. And it's a nice little moment. And then, you know, you just see like like he's just like, oh, happy birthday, and she's like, oh, she's all happy, because she got this guy. He's she got her dad. He's her surrogate dad, basically. So then it cuts to the following year, and the following year would be her 16th birthday. And for her 16th birthday, Joel really he showed up and he showed out. He takes her for a hike through the woods, and she's asking him, well, what is it? Is it this? Is it that? She's going back and forth asking him all this stuff. Then she says, is it the dinosaur? And he's like, doesn't say anything. So then she says that she's ready to do patrols, and he's like, she's like, Jesse's been training me. And he's like, what's going on with you and Jesse? Because you guys have been spending a lot of time together. And as we all know, Ellie's gay. So she's like, okay. And then he's like, has anybody talked to you about birds and the bees? And she's like, yeah, no, I understand. And he's like, okay, well, she's like, I promise not to get pregnant if you let me go on patrols. Which would be very easy for her because she doesn't like guys. So, but at this time, she doesn't tell Joel this. So then they're walking and they get to this one clearing, and there is, in fact, a dinosaur, a statue of a T-Rex. So she goes crazy, and she is so excited. She climbs up on top of the dinosaur and she stands on top of it. And she screams that she's standing on top of a dinosaur. And then she looks over and she sees a museum, and she's like, whoa, there's a museum over there. And he's like, yeah, I know, that's where we're going if you come down from the dinosaur. So they go into this museum, and it's beautiful. She looks at everything, and then there's one section that there's a little planetarium. No, I guess not a planetarium, but there's the planets there, and they would orbit. And Joel greased it up so she could turn it so the planets would orbit. And then he shows her that there's actually a real space capsule. It went up into space, and it came back down. So they get into the space capsule. She puts on her helmet. The two of them get into the space capsule, and then he gives her a cassette with a recording of a launch. So she's listening to this launch, and she's imagining what it would be like to be in space, and it's really cute. But then the following year is when things take a turn. The following year is when Joel comes home early with a cake. He's got a cake. He's got a gift, and as he goes to Ellie's room, he hears giggling, and he's like, then he hears some noises that sounds like maybe fooling around, and so he busts into the room, and Ellie is there fooling around with a girl. Not only that, but they're also smoking. They're smoking some leaves, and Ellie also got a tattoo. So they're smoking some leaves. So then Joel tells the girl to leave because she's like, he's like, oh yeah, she's 17, by the way. And the girl's like, I'm 19. And he just gives her a look like, okay. And so he tells her to leave. And then he's like, so you're going to do every teenage thing all at once, drugs, tattoos, and hooking up with girls, And then he tells her, and this is where me and Joel, we were going to have to trade words a little bit, because he tells her that she'll grow out of this phase. And Ellie's like, this phase that you mean my entire life? I have been queer since back then. I came out the womb like this. So she gets really upset at him. The two of them get into an argument, and this is when we see how Ellie ended up in the garage, because later that evening, while Joel is asleep, he hears scraping. And it's pouring rain outside. He gets up, he walks out into the hallway, and Ellie is pulling the mattress, and she's telling him that she needs to move. She wants to go sleep in the garage. And he's like, well, there's no air, there's no this. He's like, there's no electricity. You're not going to go just sleep in the garage. So they get into an argument. She ends up telling him, you don't own anything. This is our house. And then he's like, okay, maybe you do need your own space. So let me work on the garage and then we'll move you in. And she's like, okay. And he puts her bed back, and then we see her after a few days later moving everything into the garage. And this is when we kind of see the tension starting to mount between Joel and Ellie. I could be wrong, but I don't remember them doing her 18th birthday, because the next thing I remember is them on patrol, and that was when she was 19. So I'm pretty sure that they didn't do her 18th birthday. But if they did, I'm sorry that I forgot about it, because it's the only one I don't remember, like, at all. I don't even remember, like, them saying her turning 18. So we now jump 2 years later to when she's 19, which is current time in the show. And she gets to go on her first patrol with Joel. And it's supposed to be a fairly easy patrol. They're walking around. They're in the the woods. They got the horses, and she's kind of upset that they've got an easy patrol because she wants to fight things. But he's like, no, this is what's best for you. So as they're patrolling, Joel gets a call that Eugene and another citizen of Jackson have been swarmed by infected. So they have to go and help Eugene and this person out. Now Eugene is Gail's husband. Gail is the therapist that Joel was seeing. We haven't really talked to her in a little bit, but yeah, Gail's the therapist that Joel's been seeing. So they go down to the area where the infected were, and there's no infected, but Eugene is standing there, and he's got his hands up, and Joel's like, Joel says to him, he's like, did you get bitten? And, did you get bit? And then he kind of hesitates for a minute, and then he pulls his jacket open and says, yeah, and shows that he was bitten. So then Joel's ready to like fire at him, and Eugene starts saying like, please, like, let me like go see my wife. Like, I just want to say, see my wife to say goodbye to her. And Joel's like, no, we can't take that risk. And so Ellie's like, wait, before we just execute this guy on the spot, she tells the guy to hold out his hand to see if his hand shakes. His hand doesn't shake. She tells Eugene then to count to 10. He counts to 10 with no problem. So she looks at Joel and she's like, he has time. We can get him back to Jackson and let him see his wife. Joel's like, that's a huge risk. They start arguing a little bit. Then finally Joel's like, okay, you go get the horses, and then, we'll take him back to Jackson. So she leaves to go get the horses, and she basically tells him, she's like, you promise you're not gonna like do anything while I'm gone? He's like, yeah. We know Joel. So she leaves, and he's standing there with Eugene, and then he's like, come on, let's go this way. And he starts leading Eugene somewhere. And then he finally gets Eugene to a lake with a beautiful view, and Eugene realizes, oh, this is an execution. And he tells him not to turn around. And he says, so then Eugene says to, Joel, he's like, I just want to see my wife. Like, you don't have to do this. Like, I'm not going to turn. I've got some time. And he's like, please just let me see my wife before I die. And he's like, like, we'll pass the message along to her. And then he says, no, I need to see her for me. He's like, I want her face to be the last thing I see before I die. I don't want a view, which is really sweet. It's very sweet. Get you a man like Eugene who says that about you. So then Joel kind of hesitates for a minute, and I was really, really believing that he wasn't going to shoot Eugene. I was really believing that he was going to sort of like back off and be like, all right. But that didn't happen. That did not happen. He does put the gun down for a second, and he says to Eugene, like, if you really loved somebody, you would be able to see them, like, without actually seeing them. Like, they would be, like, in your mind. So then Eugene starts, like, kind of thinking, and then he says, I see her, like, he's looking out, like, into lake, and he says he sees his wife. And then we see an aerial view of the woods, and we see a bunch of birds flying away from the location where Joel and Eugene are, indicating that Joel did indeed kill Eugene. Ellie gets back to the scene. She realizes that they're over there. And when she gets over there, she sees Eugene's corpse, and she is pissed. So, of course, Joel tries to be like, oh, yeah, no, he was going to turn, and she's like, no, he wasn't. Like, he wasn't going to do that. Like, we could have brought him back. So they bring him back on the horse, and Joel's trying to justify everything. When they get there, he tells Gail that Eugene ended himself. And Gale's buying it, but he's like yeah, he's like he got bit, and then he decided that he didn't want to bring it back or infect anybody. He said he loved you, and he you know did what he had to do. And as he's comforting Gale, Ellie's like, actually. So Ellie just outs him entirely, tells him that he had time and he wanted to come back to see you, and Joel wouldn't let him, and Joel killed him. And this is why Gale hates Joel, which is totally valid now that you hear about it. It's like, yeah, you just shot her husband in cold blood. And like, because I was wondering, because like, again, I don't really know everything verbatim, and I don't even know if this happened in the game like this, but I was kind of wondering why she said that Joel shot him in cold blood if he was bitten, because I was like, well, if he was bitten, obviously he would need to be shot. Like, so now seeing it, I'm like, no, he didn't honor this guy's request. Got it. So I understand now. And Gale's totally valid in hating him. And that's really where him and Ellie, like, the bond just breaks for the most part. So Ellie leaves and she just doesn't want anything to do with him. We then jump to 9 months later, and the 9 months later is when we get to the party, the New Year's Eve party. And he's sitting there and he's, talking to Tommy and Maria, and then they get ready to leave, and Maria's telling him, like telling her that, like she's, telling him that she's really like, you know, proud of him, and she's hoping everything will be all right with him and Ellie. Then we hear Seth being homophobic, and then we get the same scene that we got in the first episode where Joel pushes him on the ground, and then Ellie's like, I don't need you to stand up for me, and then she leaves. Now, where that sequence had left off in the first episode was that Ellie was walking back home. She saw Joel on the porch, and it's implied that she goes into the garage to go to sleep. However, that's not what happened. What actually happened was she did go onto the porch to talk to him because she wanted to know what happened at the hospital. And the thing is, she already knows. She already knows deep down in her gut that Joel screwed up royally, and that, he did something horrible. And Ellie basically tells him, she's like, if you lie to me again, like, I'm done. I need you, I need you to tell me the truth. So she starts asking him questions, and he just nods or shakes his head. And then she tells him that she tells him that, like, it was her choice. It was her decision, and her life could have meant something. And then he said, like, I said something along the lines of, like, I couldn't let them do it. And she's like, because you're selfish. And then he says, no, because I love you in a way that you probably will never understand. And, he's crying when he says this. It was so hard. I was crying. I was like, okay, Pedro Pascal, that you got some emotion out of me there. I was crying. I was like, wow, why am I crying right now? But he tells her, that he loves her. And then Ellie, I think, realizes that even though she kind of has been putting up this wall and being like, I'm not your kid, like putting it that way, he really does see her as a daughter. And so Ellie tells him, I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'm going to try. And that's kind of where they leave it. And the saddest part about that is that's the night before Joel dies. That is the night before Joel. Well, I don't know if it's the exact night before. No, it's a couple nights before Joel dies, I think. It's like Joel dies right after that, basically. And it's just to think that the last conversation that the two of them had together was, him telling her that he loved her, and that's why he saved her, or, did what he did. I don't know if you want to call it saving, but that's why he did what he did. That really, like, broke my heart. So after we get that beautiful scene, the episode does end with Ellie returning to the theater in present time, returning to the theater after her journey to the hospital. And I guess next episode we're going to find out what she did to Nora. And I'm assuming it's not going to be good because she didn't look too thrilled about things. So those are the last two episodes from the past 2 weeks. My thoughts. So episode 5 was really, really, like, tense. The scene with the stalkers was awesome. Like, I love that concept of the stalkers, and they're terrifying to me, so totally love that. Yeah, I thought the episode was pretty good. It was pretty decent. It was a nice continuation, and I also like that it set up the scene for the next situation that's going to happen in episode 7. But episode 6 was really, really heartwarming and also gut-wrenching at the same time. Episode 6 was seeing a father and a daughter, even though they're not biologically related, seeing a father and a daughter go through ups and downs. And knowing Joel's story and knowing that his daughter, was killed and she didn't get a chance at life, this is really his chance to do it over again, which is something that he even says, that, if she ever does have a kid, which we know she's gonna, if she ever does have a kid, that if she ever does have a kid, that he hopes that she does better than he does. Which, is something that in the beginning, there's actually a flashback to when him and Tommy were kids, and his dad actually says that to him. Thanks, Google Updater. But it was really just, it was heartwarming. And then when you think back to the aftermath of Joel's death, and Ellie walking through the house and, burying her face in his clothes and, just like, missing him, it's painful. It's really painful. It really broke my heart. And I think that's why I cried, like, during that scene, was because, what happened already because it already happened in the show, but you realize that they both really loved each other. And even though Ellie has her reasons, and let's be honest, everything she was mad at him about was completely valid. This is not me saying that Ellie was not valid to dislike him. And I think this is interesting, and this is what I think makes this story so great, is because they do kind of show you throughout The Last of Us, in the games and in the show, that there's a lot of, in a situation like this, in a survival situation, there's really no good or bad guys. Joel does a lot of good, but he also does a lot of bad. And some of the good he does is actually pretty bad because it affects other people. And it's amazing how they were able to make this story and encapsulate that, because a lot of the times when you watch apocalypse stories, survival stories, you're focused on one group of people or one person, and you don't really get the other side of things. You don't really get the side, because again, the humans that are left after something like that happens are trying to just survive. They're trying however they want to just survive. And then you have the people warring with each other, people like fighting with each other, and people getting angry at each other. And it's just like, there's no right or wrong person. And I think this was perfect to show the good that Joel did. He did a lot of good for Ellie, but he also did things that Ellie didn't agree with, and he said things that Ellie didn't agree with, and it was totally valid. Telling her that she was going to get over being gay, no. And I'll give him a free pass for that in a way, because I don't think that's something he even considered at the time, but I also don't know how he didn't realize it, because she is like the gayest person. But yeah, no, like he just definitely messed up in that part. Like that, I was like, oh yeah, no, I would have moved out too. And then the other part was lying about not only killing Eugene, but lying about it to Gale's face. I understand where Joel was coming from in the thought of killing Eugene, because it was a risk. I'm not saying that it was the right thing to do, but it was a huge risk. If they had brought him back, there is no guarantee that while they made the journey back, he wouldn't have turned. And it wouldn't have become a liability. Or when they got there, he wouldn't have turned immediately, and that would have been a liability. But at the same time, it was cold. And I think that he shouldn't have done that after Ellie had asked him. I think he should have taken the risk. Ellie asked him, and considering the fact that he already took away one big decision from Ellie, which was, giving up her life to become the cure, I think that he owed her that, and he let her down tremendously. And everything that everybody felt towards him after that was justified. Do I hate Joel for it? No, I don't hate Joel for it. I think ultimately Joel is a very selfish man, but I think he's selfish for a very, very good reason, because we have to keep remembering his daughter died in his arms. And I think that he met Ellie. He got a second chance at being a father. He got to live through things he'll never get to live through with Sarah, which was his daughter. He got to live through those types of things, and he wants to protect that because he wants that. Like, in a weird way, it's like a little bit delusional. He's trying to get back what he lost, and he's trying to relive that through Ellie. And it makes him do a lot of stupid things. The hospital, the situation with Eugene, lying to everybody constantly. So, and then just constantly babying her too, that as well. But again, he is a dad through and through, and that's his baby. I don't care what anybody says. I know that he had nothing to do with her creation or her birth, but that's his baby. And I think she would even say that she's his baby deep down inside, because she never got to know her mom. Her mom died after having her. All she knew was the Fireflies. That's all she knew. And then she met Joel, and Joel saved her in more ways than one. And I think this is going to highlight what the show is culminating to at the end, or what the show is leading to at the end, because I know the game ends, and if it's the same as how the show is going to end, then it's going to end with a very important message. And I'll tell you what the message is without spoiling the ending of the game. The message is, they're essentially what I said earlier. There are no good guys and there are no bad guys. The ones that we might want to point a finger at and say that they're bad, are not bad, and the ones that we want to point a finger out on and say that they're good are not necessarily good. It's kind of like, for my anime fans, it's kind of like Attack on Titan. I had such a hard time when we switched from the point of view of Eren and all of the scouts that were fighting against the Titans, to Reiner and all of the and all of the horrible things that Eren did to, bring on the rumbling. And it was like, wait a minute, this character I've been with for 3 seasons, now I have to dislike him? And it is hard, because you stop and you think about it, and you're like, how do I dislike? I understand where the people from Paradise are coming from, but at the same time, you can't like deny that these people also deserve to live, that a lot of these people didn't even know what was going on. So when you look at it from that perspective, Joel may be doing it for reasons that we understand, and because we've been with him for longer, we're like, he's justified. We try to make excuses for it, but at the end of the day, he's not really justified. He's not really justified in the things that he does to people, and vice versa. We will get to know Abby a lot better in the next season, I'm assuming, because there's only 1 episode left. We will get to know Abby a lot better. And that flip from Ellie's point of view to Abby's point of view is going to rock some people's minds, basically, because it's going to make you look at the actions that she did towards Joel and the way that she brutally murdered him. It's going to make you think a lot differently and see just how she thinks she's justified in what she's doing, despite the fact that she's also not justified, because it is a cycle of violence that you're continuing. The cycle should have ended when Joel killed her father. It should have ended long before that, but if that was where it needed to end, it should have ended where Joel killed her father. But unfortunately, Abby continued the cycle, and now Ellie's continuing the cycle. And that's basically what The Last of Us is about. It's not about survival or a post-apocalyptic, world. It's not about infected or stalkers or clickers or bloaters or whatever. It's solely and truly about, there are no real winners in war. And this is a war. This is a war for survival. There are no true winners. Neither of them, they're all gray. Every single one of them is gray, and that's just the reality of it. And episode 6 really did encapsulate that, because you had all these great moments with Joel and Ellie, and then you flipped that over, and then you had all these moments where you were kind of like, Joel, no. You're like, Joel, you went from like being dad of the year to being whatever this is. So I really liked that. This show has impressed me 2 seasons now. I'm really excited to see how season 2 ends, how the 7th episode goes. If it's gonna end the way that me and my brother think it's gonna end, oh boy, hold on to your hats. But we'll see. We'll see next weekend. But that is going to be it for this review. Like I said, we have 1 more episode left of The Last of Us Season 2. And I, for one, I'm going to miss the show. But we have a lot more stuff on the books, because let's just run down some of the stuff. Like I said, I am going to be seeing Final Destination Bloodlines, and I am going to watch all 5 of the Final Destinations before, not before, but I'm going to watch them, like, and I'm going to do a review of the series. I'll probably do a separate review for Bloodlines and then do a review for the series. So that's what we're going to do next. I have not seen Final Destination since I was in high school, so this is going to be a ride. Actually, no, I did see the last 2 when I was like in my early 20s. But yeah, I feel like I haven't seen them in a long time. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing. I've heard good things about Bloodlines, so I'm interested in seeing what's going to transpire. After that, we will have Poppy Playtime chapters 2, 3, and 4, not all at once. But we'll have chapter 2 first. My computer, I'm really hoping, because we did upgrade the RAM last week, and I'm really hoping that it will record and run the game. It's been running beautifully. The computer's been running magnificently. So I'm really hoping that we can, I can actually record this and put it up, and it'll be like good quality for once. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna play around with it this weekend, and we'll see if I actually play it this weekend, and then we'll get to it. And I will be doing chapters 3 and 4 at a different time. Then we'll have Yellow Jacket season 3. And hopefully, we will soon have some Halloween Horror Nights announcements, because we are getting into June, and HHN is fast approaching. It'll be here before it starts in the end of August, so it'll be here before we know it. I absolutely am excited, though. There's a lot of really good speculation, even more than what I spoke about, and I'm excited for this year. If everything that everybody's been saying on Reddit is true, which I don't believe everything on Reddit, but if it is true, this is going to be a good year, and I'm gonna love it. So I'm really excited for that. Epic Universe opens in three days. 3 days. Epic Universe opens in 3 days. I won't be there. Strictly because, like, why would I go on opening day? I will, though, at some point make my way over there, and I will do a nice little vlog for y'all, and I'll give you my thoughts about it. I'm hoping we get a summer tribute store at Universal, like we did last year. I'm hoping we get that so I can share that with you guys. And yeah, we're gonna do this. This is we're getting into the best part of theme park season. We've got a lot of great horror movies coming up. We've got a lot of, we've got horror games that we're gonna be playing. I'm a busy person right now, but I like being busy because this is fun. I like doing this. It's fun. But yeah, so anyways, I'm going to wrap this up and get the heck out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, like the video, subscribe, leave a comment down below. Any engagement that you give me lets me know that you liked what you just watched. Go follow me on my socials. I'm at Creepy Critiques. I am back on Threads. I am on Blue Sky. I am on Instagram, and I am on TikTok. Every now and then I pop up on TikTok commenting on K-pop videos. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I'm back to social media, every now and then. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you all next time with another creepy critique.